what you get with a space truck and nomad. Bit of good, a bit of bad. A bit of good, a bit of bad, yeah. Love 'em hard and leave 'em fast. That's what you get with a space truck and nomad. There's a price on my head. They wanna bring me in alive or dead. Wanted man, renegade. I roll the dice 'cause I'm not afraid. In this life filled with fools, sometimes you know you gotta bend the rules. You gotta fight to survive. Do what you gotta do to stay alive. Black and white, day and night. The wheel turns round and round. Loser, winner, saint and sinner. Never know what'll come around. A bit of good, a bit of bad. A bit of good, a bit of bad, yeah. A bit of good, a bit of bad. That's what you get with a space truck and nomad. Bit of good, a bit of bad. A bit of good, a bit of bad, yeah. Love 'em hard and leave 'em fast. That's what you get with a space truck and nomad. Bit of good, a bit of bad. A bit of good, a bit of bad, yeah. Bit of good, a bit of bad. That's what you get with a space truck and nomad. Bit of good, a bit of bad. A bit of good, a bit of bad, yeah. Love 'em hard and leave 'em fast. That's what you get with a space truck and nomad. Bit of good, a bit of bad. 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 Bit of good, I watch the fire dance, it whispers your name. We surrender to the chance, we were both the same. We tried to reach the sun, but we flew too high. We never became one, never wondered why. like the grave. And still it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Like a ghost living in my head. The things you did, all the things you said, wasn't love, but something black instead. Like you, it's all dead to me now. The black and moonless nights remind me of you. It holds me close like you used to do. Your serpent's kiss was something that I craved. I tried to resist but was willingly enslaved. I hear your voice and it's calling out my name. While the candle burns and steals away the flame. Love was cold and dark, just like the grave. And still it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Like a ghost living in my head. The things you did, all the things you said, wasn't love, but something black instead. Like you, dark you'll see that the flame is me. Nothing can stop me, nothing slows me down. I don't surrender, lay it all on the line. I'm a million-charge supernova sparking up from the ground. Stand back, baby, and watch me shine. Been counted out before I've been left for dead. I keep coming back for more, just like I said. I'll stand down an army, trust me, they'll fall one by one. I'm back now from nothing, honey. I rise like the sun. 'Cause they can't break me, and they can't shake me. In the dark you'll see that the flame is me. Nothing can stop me, nothing slows me down. I don't surrender, lay it all on the line. I'm a million-charge supernova sparking up from the ground. Stand back, baby, and watch me shine. Cause they can't break me, and they can't shake me. In the dark you'll see that the flame is me. Nothing can stop me, nothing slows me down. I don't surrender, lay it all on the line. I'm a million-charge supernova sparking up from the ground. Stand back, baby, and watch me shine. Nothing can stop me, nothing slows me down. I don't surrender, lay it all on the line. I'm a million-charge supernova sparking up from the ground. Stand back, baby, and watch me shine. We move through time and space, never giving up the chase. A relentless force that's always moving towards you. We don't care about the odds. We laugh in the face of gods. We don't back down. We stand our ground. We stay true. Yeah, we see your faces in our dreams. We hear the sound of a million screams. Close your eyes and say your prayers. Open your eyes and we'll be there. at you with all we got. We're ready, so take your best shot. We don't hide from our fears. For the fallen, we shed no tears. We take the pain, use it to make us stronger. Oh, can you see each and every scar? They're all part of who we are. They never fade. Every day they grow longer. We see your faces in our dreams. We hear the sound of a million screams. Close your eyes and say your prayers. Open your eyes and we'll be there. We're here ready to fight. We're gonna light up the night. Gonna give you all you can take. We're gonna make your whole world shake. We're here ready to roll. We're just about to lose control. Coming at you with all we got. We're ready, so take your best shot. Dancing on the edge of a knife. In the balance hangs your life. Better look in front, better look behind you. One of these days, we're gonna find you. We're here ready to fight. We're gonna light up the night. Gonna give you all you can take. We're gonna make your whole world shake. We're here ready to roll. We're just about to lose control. Coming at you with all we got. We're ready, so take your best shot. We're here ready to fight. We're gonna light up the night. Gonna give you all you can take. We're gonna make your whole world shake. We're here ready to roll. We're just about to lose control. Coming at you with all we got. We're ready, so take your best shot. willing to stand up and fight. Screams coming from out of the night. Blood red, soulless skies. They came with death in their eyes. The stars carry their cries. Never again, never again. Blood red, soulless skies. Fire rained and whole worlds died. They stand so life can survive. Never again, never will the sun rise. Blood red, soulless skies. Fire rained and whole worlds died. They stand so life can survive. Never again, never will the sun rise. Solar skies. Solar
Hello everybody and welcome to a very special Let's Play presented by Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, which is available October 26th on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series S, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. Whew. And it's special for a couple of reasons, because the kind folks over at Square Enix, Marvel Games, and Eidos-Montréal have agreed to let us stream Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy a day before release, and they were kind enough to supply us with some Guardians of our own. Now, joining me to check it out is Senior Creative Director on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, Jean-François Dugas, and Mary DeMarle, who is the Senior Narrative Director. Welcome! And we're in the far reaches of space. This is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. JF, why don't you just... First things first, what is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, the video game, aside from everything I just said?
Well, in a nutshell, it's a third-person action-adventure in which you play Peter Quill, the so-called leader of the Guardians, and you will guide them through a big journey across the galaxy to save the day, and you're going to use the powers of your Guardians along the way. So it's a very narratively driven experience that will take you on a very, very exciting adventure.
Now, we just saw a little dialogue box there. As we can see, we are just controlling Star-Lord. Can you talk a little bit about the choice to make this a game where you just control Star-Lord and kind of, you know, I guess delegate among the other members versus just a game where you control everyone?
Absolutely. One of the first things we wanted with this game was to break expectations and be able to leverage the power of the Guardians franchise. And when you look at those characters, they're very colorful, they're very eclectic and everything. And all of what they do, it's being in relationship with each other, like fighting, agreeing, coming up with plans and things like that. And they're constantly together. And we thought, like, you know what, that's the strength of the franchise. And it would be very powerful and very immersive and engaging to put you at the center of this team. So by being Peter Quill is the so-called leader of the crew, like it puts you in the shoes of one of the Guardians and you're surrounded by all of the rest of them and you're able to interact with them, to chip in conversation. You'll also have to make the calls for the team, and also you will have to deal with the consequences that comes with that. So we thought that would be a very great way to engage audiences with a great Guardians of the Galaxy experience.
Now, a lot of people's first exposure to the Guardians was in the 2014, MCU movie.
Yes.
Kind of prior to that, they were, they're kind of some D-listers, and I think there's definitely like a, it's funny because like I feel like when you recast Spider-Man, it's been done a million times. There's less of kind of a knee-jerk reaction, but I think a lot of people are like, why isn't this Chris Pratt? Like how are these Guardians different from the MCU versions?
Right from the get-go, when we sat with Marvel to discuss where we would go with that project, it was clear on their side, and it was our wish as well, to create something totally new, something really unique. Like Marvel wanted the Eidos-Montréal kind of touch, like what's your version of the Guardians of the Galaxy? So what we did is we went on in creating this unique version, And the challenge, or the I should say what we had to face as we were doing it, it was to come up with novelty, but at the same time staying somewhat in the familiar territory. So people who know of the MCU and things like that, they would recognize those are the Guardians. But if you're new to the franchise, or even if you're an old fan, you'll see there's something different about those characters. And this is where it becomes interesting, because it's not just re-eating or re-chewing what has already been done and said. It's something really, really different, a new story, new background for the characters. Everything basically is new, and Marvel helped us and guide us to make sure we were creating an authentic version of the Guardians.
There's something of a generational difference too. Like I feel like the Chris Pratt MCU one is kind of a 70s kid, and this version of Peter Quill is very much like an 80s metalhead teenager.
I don't know where it's coming from.
I love it. It couldn't have anything to do with that Judas Priest shirt.
Exactly. Well, let's be honest. It's a little bit inspired by our own youth and everything. And in our version of the Guardians, Peter Quill is a kid, he's a teenager in the mid '80s, and he's being influenced by the hard rock music. He has a soft spot for that, but he loves a lot of music. Is really embracing a lot of the stuff from back then, video games and things like that, the movies. And we really wanted to capture that feel with young Peter, but also with the Peter that you play in the game as an adult. He has the Star-Lord patch in the back of his jacket, which is his favorite band, Star-Lord, that he brought from Earth when he was a kid. So yes, there's a great 80 vibe in there.
It's great. Now, shifting gears, we can talk about music more a little bit, which I'm excited to do, but let's talk about the combat. This is clearly very early in the game. We're still learning how to kick these little guys.
Yes. Well, it's in this, it's really the beginning, like you said, the beginning of the game, where we just make you learn the fundamentals of combat and everything. And it's a third-person shooter, if I say that in a simplistic way, because at first you get the gist of shooting, running around, punching, because you have melee abilities. Eventually you will have gadgets too, and as you progress through the first level, you'll get the Guardians with you, and the Guardians come with their own set of skills that you can use during combat, and that's what you're going to learn through the first chapter. So combat is all about maintaining the cohesion with the team, staying engaged in the fight around your Guardians, and the more you're engaged in the fight with them, the more they will be efficient. And as you use their abilities also, you're going to really maximize your opportunities against the enemies, and you will fill your momentum bar. And the more you fill your momentum bar, now you have a perk that is called a huddle that you can call at any given time to flip the tables during a fight if needed, or if you just want to get on with something more quickly. But it's really a game about dealing with your character, but also maximizing and taking advantage of the powers that the Guardians have to offer you.
And the powers that they have aren't just used in combat. There's also there's some puzzle elements too here.
Yes, you can, as you progress through different environments, there's traversal. Sometimes you will encounter puzzles in which you will have to use the skills of Gamora or Drax, Groot, or Rocket, and your own powers as well. So it becomes very interesting, because from almost start to finish, you constantly play with the Guardians. Even though you just control one character, they're constantly around with you.
Now, Mary, a minute ago we saw a little sort of dialogue option of,
yes,
do we want to pitch a backup plan, or do we want to have faith in this plan? And I think I said, what did I say? Pitch a backup plan? I can't remember what.
Trust in the plan.
It didn't give me any feedback, and I'm curious, what are the sort of cause and effect of choices in this, and will we? I guess are there sort of visible repercussions, or is it kind of hidden?
Well, there's a bunch of different repercussions. It really depends on what we're being presented with. As you're walking through the game, you have those dialogue choices, and they can maybe just affect the flow of the conversation in that moment, or potentially they could be a decision that affects gameplay later on. So, for instance, you might be given a choice: which guardian are you going to depend on in a situation? And depending on how the guardians react to that, it can make the mission later on. You might have to play it a little differently because they might get mad at you. They might want to not help you at points. And these choices can then play off on themselves very late into the game, even affecting, the final battle, who you have on your side as you confront the villains.
And I would add the thing is that even with some of the choices that are more about flavor, we track every single choice that players are making throughout the game under the hood, and it might have some sort of repercussion even beyond the credit roll. So it's a game that is really rewarding until the final moment of the game.
So there's definitely some proper role-playing mechanics going on here, like as in the very literal sense of like you're Star-Lord. Who do you want to piss off or not piss off?
It's the way I look at it is you're forming relationships for yourself with the team. The story is linear mostly. There's a central line, and certain events will always happen. However, your experience of that story and your experience of your guardians depends on how you want to interact with them, how you want to talk to them. Do you find things in the environment you can give them later, and that would open up more information and form a closer relationship between you and the guardians.
Now, JF, this is. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what the studio brings to Guardians, like, because this is the Deus Ex team, correct?
Correct. Well,
I feel like this is a kind of a far cry from what we are used to.
Yeah, we had to shift our brains from one direction to the other direction totally. But definitely we brought some of the aspects of what we were doing in Deus Ex to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy when we think about choices and consequences. And as we were looking at the game we were making with the franchise, you play as Star-Lord, the so-called leader, and it speaks to choices and repercussions. So it's definitely something we wanted to bring to Guardians, and I think it's quite unique in the action adventure kind of games. It's fresh, so and it puts you in the shoes of Peter, like you feel really engaged with the choices you're making. So it's something that we really wanted to carry forward. Another aspect that we really wanted to bring to the table that we were also pushing in Deus Ex games is what we call internally the show don't tell. It's like the attention to all the details in the environment. We love when you get in a room somewhere and the way it's props, the way it's staged, like it tells you a story. And as you're going to see in Guardians of the Galaxy, especially when you go in the Milano, all the characters have different personal spaces, and just like getting inside of the personal space of one character, you're going to see so much detail that speaks to what that character is about, and we really wanted to push it also through the environments that the Guardians are going to visit through the adventure. And lastly, one thing that was really strong also in our previous work, it was like all the narrative aspect, like engaging you in a very powerful emotional story that you want to know what comes next. And with this game, like it's the same narrative team and some new blood as well that came to give life to our version of the Guardians, and the team did an amazing job to really embrace that version of the characters and the adventure we were going for. And the way we build this game, like each chapter kind of ends on a small cliffhanger, always making you want to know more. So it can be cool at the end of chapter. Is it time to go to bed, or it's I'm going for another chapter because I want to know what happens next. So we really brought that kind of narrative experience and emotional craftsmanship to that experience.
I mean, it's rooted in comic books. Like it's got a very serialized narrative kind of foundation there. Can you speak a little bit about what it was like working with Marvel and Marvel Games?
I think it was really great, to be honest, because like I was saying with our first conversation, they wanted us to create our own version of the Guardians, and we were aligned on that, and we started to work and develop the characters, develop the story, develop the environments. And Marvel, they were always there with us to make sure that we achieve our vision. So they were really trying to help us achieve that. And sometimes, like, we had some ideas about a character or situation, and they would, if we didn't have necessarily the permission at the time, they would work super hard to give us the permission. Or Bill Rosemann, their creative director, would come sometimes, hey, you have this character in the game that it would fit a perfect Marvel character that we have. And then we were going to explore and look at that character and was, oh my God, Bill is right, let's embrace it. So we felt like all the way through, they were there to make sure we were creating the greatest Guardians of the Galaxy game we could.
Now it's interesting because like with Marvel, obviously there's the cinematic universe and there's the video game and there's the falling off the cliff universe. But there's sort of there's different timelines. There's a lot of flexibility, and this is clearly a unique set of Guardians for this game. But they do seem to exist within a larger Marvel universe. Was there, I guess, what was the relationship like in that sense? Was there any kind of nudging in one direction or another? Was it asking permission to use certain references to other parts of the Marvel universe, the lore?
Well, it was... Oh, go Mary, please.
Yeah, I would say it was a bit on both sides, because within Eidos you have a lot of Marvel fans and people who know this universe, and we were coming up with ideas and we were presenting it to them and saying, could we use this character? Would this work for this role in the game? And they were often agreeing with us, and other times we would maybe go to them and say, we have a character, but we don't know who would be best. And they would come back to us, and they would say, hey, this character totally fits that role. Why don't you pursue that? And then we would look into it, and inevitably they were right. And we just all created the best that we could together.
I love it. Now, we've talked a little bit about sort of how Peter Quill differs from his, various on-screen in comic book versions. Can you talk a little bit about the other team members and what they're... what am I doing? And what they bring to the team aside from basic motor skills?
Well, let's see. We have Rocket and Groot. Every single one of the Guardians has been given a backstory that fits into our universe. So our universe is 12 years after this massive galactic war, and every Guardian had a role in that war. So from that, we start bringing it forward. Rocket has his comic book origins of Half-World, and we built on that. And Groot comes from Planet X, which was destroyed in the war. Drax, of course, has his family that he lost in the war. And Gamora, in the middle of the war, switched sides in order to get away from her father. So we built a lot of that story, and we looked at the comic books for influence on their designs and changed their looks according to things that we discovered.
Now we're starting to see sort of some of the different attacks we can command people to do, and I see there's obviously other slots there. How is there like a skill tree? Do you sort of unlock different abilities?
Yes, absolutely. We were talking that all the Guardians have different personalities, but they also have a different skill set. And each character is going to have several abilities each, so 4 each, so for 20 abilities to unlock as you go through the game. And each character has a role to play. So for instance, if we start with Peter Quill, as the so-called leader, is going to give comments to the other characters, but he's a little bit of the jack of all trades. Like he can send small bombs, or he has a protective shield. He can use his elemental powers, his jet boots, his melee skills and whatnot. When you go like a character like Drax is more the tank, like he goes into the fray and he tries to take as many enemies at once, and sometimes maybe he tries to shoot too much at once and he can get in trouble, but he's good at staggering the enemies, because certain archetypes will have a stagger bar that needs to be broken so you can inflict damage. And this is where Gamora comes into play, because she's the assassin and she can be very deadly. So she's the one inflicting heavy damage. And Rocket is the area of effect guy that is able to snap several enemies at once with different of these grenades that he built himself and whatnot. And finally, you have Groot, that is kind of the support guy that will be able down the line to heal the companions, is also able to immobilize like faster enemies and things like that. So he can be really useful and bring different opportunities to the table. And the way we build those abilities, there's a little bit of overlap between the characters, but everyone has their own specialty. So as you go in the battlefield, let's say you already use one ability of a Guardian and there's a cooldown happening, you can still figure out other ways to go around with the other characters and Peter Quill. And what is cool is that it creates a lot of opportunities to come up with different ways and plans to defeat the enemies, and you can get very creative, and it gets really rewarding as you go and as you discover those abilities and how you can mix and match them.
So yeah, it's very clearly got some RPG mechanics, even if at a glance you're like, oh, it's a third-person shooter. But you're getting experimental here. Now, can we talk a little bit about what all the pink stuff is and what exactly the quarantine zone is?
You want to take it, Mary?
Sure. The quarantine zone is a place that all of the debris from this galactic war was basically towed to by Nova Corps and wrapped up in this protective nanoresin. That's the pink stuff. And it's basically so that all of this dangerous material can be kept away from everyone else. And slowly over time, the nanoresin is growing and building and squishing everything together in a way to get rid of all this dangerous technology.
And so the Guardians are poking around looking for some treasure, looking for some good stuff in here?
Yeah, it's technically very illegal to go inside there, but they are hunting for a monster that they believe might be in there that they can then sell to a famous monster collector. And along the way, of course, Rocket's like, why not pick up some illegal tech? It can always do wonderful stuff for us.
I love it. And we've made a game out of it too. We're shooting these grubs. And then that's the scoreboard at the top there.
Yes, that is the parasites that exist in this world, and Rocket and Star-Lord, being rather playful and constantly teasing and challenging each other, are engaging in a bet that Rocket challenged Star-Lord to who can be the better shooter.
Okay, so we've got the basics down, and we are going to jump ahead a bit and show some more mid-game combat when we're actually fully trained in what we're doing. Okay, so we've jumped ahead a bit. We are now in Chapter 5, a good chunk of the way into the game. We've got some combat abilities unlocked, and we're going to show them off in a second. We won't go into too much detail about what's going on here, but we're going to fight some bad guys.
What is interesting here is the fact that, as in the previous conversation, you had the choice to make yourself known to the enemies or not, and you decided to not to do that. So now you come in this fight with the advantage, and there are some item in the environment that you could have taken advantage of, like the Gamora trait there that she can cut and unleash over the enemies. So depending on how you play the game and when you look at your environment, there can be different possibilities that you can use to really get rid of the enemies a little bit more quicker, and then finish it with the Guardian's abilities and your own abilities.
And Peter also has a elemental attack now where he can freeze people.
Absolutely. Earlier in the game, there were very tense moments that Peter had to step up to save the Guardians, and mysteriously his gun connected through his skin, through his DNA, and he doesn't understand how it happens, but it's a gun or a pair of guns that were left by his father that he never met, and somehow they're linked to him. So when there's a dire situation that happens, the guns unlock new abilities somehow that helps Peter to save himself and save his friends. So, and as you go through the game, you'll learn a little bit more about those guns and how you can use them.
All right, so now we've got a real tough bad guy here who has a shield, which I think is one of my biggest pet peeves in games, is those guys with shields because they're hard to hit. We have a huddle ready. Should we use that, or should we save that for later? What do you think?
I think we can wait a bit, because when we look at this guy, I'm seeing you're shooting at him, he's defending himself. If you send Gamora right away, she won't be super efficient. I think at this point, like sending Drax first to try to stagger the enemy is a good idea. And see that the stagger bar now is getting filled, and now sending Gamora, Rocket, your super gun ability is going to inflict a lot of damage. But after a certain time, like this enemy is able to recharge, so you have to pace yourself, find the best strategy.
Down,
and boom,
down. There we go.
Since you stayed engaged in the combat and you managed to stagger him quickly, use the Guardians in a good way, like it created an opportunity for a combo, and now you were able to finish that enemy super quickly, and that's the beauty of the game. As you're going to play with those different abilities, the environmental opportunities and whatnot, you're going to inflict a lot of damages on the enemies, and the ones that you'll see for the first time that will appear tough, when you meet them again, when you're more acquainted with your skill set, you're going to get rid of them quite efficiently.
And there are these sort of mines that are trapping people, which is big. Suddenly you've got someone's down.
Yeah, the Grenadier is able to send those drone mines, so to speak. And what you can do is that you can shoot at them directly to free your companions. So, or if you didn't do it in time, you will have to revive your companion if you're able to do that.
All right, and of course, killing people will give you some health, which I desperately need.
You sure? You don't want to call that huddle?
It might be time to call that huddle. Let's do it. Okay, so here we have it. I don't know what it says about my motivational speaking skills. I don't think I've gotten one of these right yet. So guide me through this, yeah.
Yeah, basically the Guardians are giving you feedback about what's going on. And right now they're saying like we're getting swarmed, so you need to boost your characters, like give them the right speech. So I don't see super well on screen right now.
Nope.
Did I pick the
wrong one? Yeah.
I told him to stop arguing. I'm terrible at this. I'm like, So,
basically, the way it works is that as they come in, when you call them, they will give you a feedback on how it's going on the battlefield, and there are keywords appearing in the backdrop that you can pay attention to. So after that, you get 2 speeches that you can deliver, and if you deliver the proper one, it's going to boost back all the characters, like full HP. Everything will be good, and you can unleash their abilities like with almost no cooldown. So you will really feel the impact on the battlefield. And if you don't deliver the right speech like you just did, the Guardians will go, what the hell are you talking about? So the only bonus they will have, their HP will be back to normal, but you're not going to be able to spam their abilities. But Peter, him, is going to be invincible, is going to be fully recharged, and you can spam his abilities because he still thinks he delivered a great speech to his crew. So for him, it doesn't matter. Like, guys, you don't understand it. That was awesome. And as he finishes the speech, he unleashes one of his favorite tune on his cassette player, and the tune basically is the tune that inspired the speech he delivered. So.
And there's the little sort of, if you perfectly time the reload, you get a little bit of an action, like a bonus
Quick
there.
reload.
Yeah, if you do the quick reload at the right moment, you're going to get a boost in terms of damage on the enemy, but also you'll be able to return to full blasting more quickly.
So I'm
What is interesting? Oh,
I've played this before, I swear. Yeah, it's not just, it's not just straight shooting. There's a fair amount of strategy
There's a bit
involved.
of strategy to it, yes.
yeah. So now, because Drax is incapacitated, you can revive him if you want, if you have the time. But now you don't have access to his abilities. So dealing with this shield guy becomes a little bit more challenging. So what is interesting is always a balancing act, like with what's going on the battlefield. Do you go try to take the risk to revive your friend right away, or you try to deal with the other characters as you go and everything? So there's this risk and reward kind of a component, and now you decided to revive Drax. Now you can use him to stagger, or in this case you manage to take advantage of a nice combo to get rid of him quickly.
And there's a lot of action going on here, and occasionally you will get these sort of quick time event cues or
Yeah.
like button cues. What are the states that cause those to happen?
Actually, as you fight and you use your guardians and your own skill, you're boosting your momentum bar. And the more you do good in a fight, and the more, like, because you see those titles on screen, marvelous, fantastic, and all those things, and the more you play with your team and you stay engaged with them, the momentum fills. And the more it fills and the higher your battling score is, it increases the chances of having those combos with your characters. So when you inflict damage, you break the stagger bar, and you use all these possibilities, then boom, you're going to have these opportunity to take them down super quickly. So it's really tied to how you fare in battles.
I'm into it. Yeah, it's. I feel like it's very kind of hack and slash, beat 'em up mentality. But again, you're zapping people with ice blasts.
Yeah, the ice element can be really powerful against like lesser enemies to freeze them right away, and you can just go with the melee and punch, and they shatter in pieces. Or like with the big guy with the shield, using the elemental ice on the shield. Actually, it doesn't remove the shield, but it slows the enemy down. So it gives you a chance to go around and inflict damage or send Gamora, and you're opening up opportunities. So there are many ways that you can go around and to find the best way to defeat those guys. So this is when I was talking about a little bit of overlap and different tools and the skill set for all the Guardians and Peter that you have. You can use them in very creative ways to get rid of those enemies faster.
Now, would it be safe to assume that if you have one element, there would be other elements that come later in the game?
Absolutely. As you're going to go down the adventure, you're going to unlock 3 more powers along the way. And again, it will happen through very dire situations for Peter and his friends. And as you see here, like you froze the lesser enemies, the grunts, and like you can get rid of them like super quickly.
Love the use of explosive
environmental
attacks.
Yeah. And again, in terms of flexibility, you could have shot at that barrel or just use Drax like you just did. Depending where enemies are on the battlefield, like there might be different ways to use that to your advantage.
Can you go over I feel like you've got all these wonderful, these Marvel adjectives like uncanny and amazing and marvelous. What's the order for those? Like, what's the best one?
Well, the latest, the last one, do you remember, Mary? I don't remember which the last one is.
I don't remember either. It might be marvelous.
It might be
That's good to hear.
I'm not sure.
I love it. It's kind of got a...
The key is how many exclamation points.
I love it.
Because there's one exclamation point per level, basically.
Nice. Yeah, I mean it's got those again the Marvel words, like they're very familiar adjectives, which is it's cute. There's a lot of little Marvel nods like that in here.
And basically, it's there to give you the feedback on how you're faring with your Guardians. And the higher and the more exclamation points, like Mary said, you have, the better you're faring, the more possibilities for combos you have. The Guardians will be much more efficient in battle, and you're filling also your huddle bar even faster. So it's a gauge for you to know how you're doing in battle, and to give you like the hints that you need to know that all those benefits that come with it, like, are going to be available to you as you maintain that momentum. Because if you make mistakes and you get it too much, or you don't use the right Guardians and everything, your momentum can slow down and it can be broken, and therefore you have to rebuild it to get back to the advantages that you can use down the line.
And now we kind of go back to a bit of a more environmental exploration stretch.
Yes, you can look around. Sometimes you can find what we call pocket secretaries, where there are some storylines about what's going on in this facility that you can get interested into. And what is nice is the fact that you just picked one up there. You can read it right away, but if you're like, no, I'll save it for later, you can go in the menus and read it, save it for later, or just do it right now.
And there's
What's interesting here is that before you go up, there's if you look behind you, you have a costume that you can find. Just behind, if you drop down, go behind this, behind the platform, go behind, and
I see it. There we go.
Yeah.
What do we got? Ooh,
Groot Nova Corps.
let's try that on. Let's check that out. These are
Here you go.
I don't know how I feel about a tree wearing a jumpsuit. That's a little weird.
Well, it's your call.
This is great.
It's your version.
I'm a huge sucker for just like collectible costumes, especially when they're nods to existing stuff. And it seems like you had a pretty thorough job with that. Like there's a lot of like specific citations of where the costumes came from, which is awesome.
Yeah, we have about 40 costumes, and it covers a lot of ground, like from the MCU costumes to the comics, the various comics costumes, and there are also some unique costumes that were also created for this game. And Mary, maybe she can talk a bit about it, but for all costume, there are nice descriptions that actually are really funny to read.
Yeah, our writers had a lot of fun with that. We just threw the costumes at this one writer, Ethan, and he had fun writing these little tidbits in the characters' voices. And then we sent them off to Marvel, and they provided us with all the comic background information to add. So it's a nice little thing to read those menus and find out where these costumes originated, and to see how they fit into the lore of our universe.
I love it. I mean, that's sort of a testament to how much writing there is in a game. You have to write about the tree's jumpsuit.
Yes.
So one thing people are obviously, have their aversions to is microtransactions. To reiterate, these costumes are all they're in the game. You find them.
They're all in the game. You have to find them. And what is interesting, and maybe the first playthrough, you might not find them all, and you replay and you find the ones you miss and everything. And there's quite a bit to collect. So it's all in the game. It's kind of a very old school way, like everything is found in the game.
Imagine that. Yeah. Now let's see. We're going to unlock. Do I have enough points for that? There we go.
You have 3 points. Yes, you can. Yeah, Eye of the Hurricane. Actually, it's kind of a nod to another game we made, but it's called Deus Ex with the Typhoon.
Yeah, I just got that.
it was a clin d'œil that we did, but it's a very cool and efficient ability. So now you see the skill tree for all the Guardians. If you go, for example, in Gamera skill tree, like it's all about like the Deadly Strike to inflict a lot of damage. Shadow Strike, she can like hit many enemies at once and going super fast. And she also has a stagger wave that allows you, like let's say Drax is your specialist for stagger, but is in cooldown, and now you're a little bit in trouble, and you can use Gamera. She will never be as efficient as Drax is, but she can help you. And if an enemy was almost staggered, she can finish it, and now you can take advantage of it. So those are the kind of a little overlaps that we go through, and we go for each character. Here with Rocket, he has the basic cluster flark bomb that like deals a lot of damage around you. The Gravistack grenade is a really nice one because what it does, and when it explodes, it takes all the enemies around and put them together in a spot, and now suddenly do you use the Groot Fury Vines to like damage them, or just send Drax into that spot and hit all the enemies at once? So you can create different combos and like that. And for all the characters, you have those kind of things. And you may have noticed also that there's an ability that is with a question mark that you don't know what it is. And those abilities are being unlocked through the narrative, because there will be certain moments in the game that will be a little bit tenser. There will be something happening where one of the Guardian will have to grow up, like to overcome a personal issue, and as they go through these things, it will unlock a new ability for them at that point in time.
Nice. And here's the Milano, which has been taken captive.
Yes. And finally, we can take it back and fly away from this weird base where a lot of weird stuff is happening.
This is one of those missions where if you try to fight everybody, it doesn't really work. You kind of have to just do the thing and get the hell out.
Absolutely. We call those battles, internally we call them comzol, like combat and puzzle kind of thing. So comzol, you have an objective to achieve. And in this case, what happened is that Rocket was trying to release the Milano from the clamps of the station, but they got stuck somehow, they got locked. And now you have to go on the battlefield and free the Milano from those clamps. But enemies keep coming. So your role is to really find the weak spot to destroy them all and not get killed along the way. So the goal here is not to try to clean the room, it's to free the Milano and get away.
That was a lot quicker than the first time I did it. I definitely got lost, fell off the ship a few times.
You start to look like us when we play the game.
All right, Mary's going to be back in a little bit to tell us more about narrative in Guardians of the Galaxy, but right now we are joined by Marvel Games VP and Head of Creative, Bill Rosemann. Bill, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, and hello to all the true believers out there.
Now, something I love as a longtime Marvel reader is that it's a big universe. There's a lot to keep track of, and there's stuff in the game that is obviously original and bespoke for the game, and there's also there's some wonderfully deep cut references, as you were mentioning. And what I love is that there are proper citations to where in the comics they can be found. Like, let's take a look here. We've got the different costumes, and it's like here's Team Lord, here's Star-Lord's
Hey, there's my name.
Yeah, right. Like, you were editor on this comic when this came out, which is it's.
This is another example of how above and beyond the Eidos-Montréal team goes. They didn't have to do this. They could have just had the suit and maybe had the issue it came from, but they said, hey, can you give us all the credits? And sometimes people just credit a writer and artist, as they should. They create it, but I'm like, the little people behind the scenes. They credit everyone. It's the inkers, the colorists, the cover artists, and even the editor, the behind the curtains editor. So everybody really appreciates that. And again, it's just a symbol of how above and beyond they go I want to mention one other thing when you talked about anything that really tickled me. Here's another great example. The team had the idea of, hey, maybe Peter Quill gets his Star-Lord name from one of his favorite bands, when he was 13 back on Earth. And we're like, well, that makes sense. Because if you read the original comics from the 70s, it's very kind of convoluted how he gets his name. So they said, okay, it'll be a band. And they could have stopped there, but no. Then they created, in the game, you see the Star-Lord album. They could have stopped there. No. They said, what if we do some songs? So they could have just done one song. No, they did an entire album of songs. Then they said, could we do a video? And we're like, please do. And so that's just an example of they take one thing and they pour their hearts in it and they just go add. They didn't have to, but it spoke to them. And it spoke to the Guardians. The Guardians is this sci-fi rock and roll misfit band. So it all works. It's new, it's innovative, but it feels authentic.
No, it's wonderful. I also love that you've got a Kiss song on the soundtrack, and back in the days of yore, Kiss had a comic where they fought Doctor Doom. Like it's all sort of circular.
Exactly. Marvel has a history. Marvel is very rock and roll, and Marvel, as you said, has that authentic history of having bands star in comics, having characters reference music. So it all makes sense. And that the logo on the back of Peter's jacket, Star-Lord, that is the band's logo, a patch that he then put on his jacket because he thought it was the coolest thing ever.
It's such a good, like, to think he could have been also called like Loverboy or Foreigner. Like there's lucked out with Star-Lord.
Star-Lord.
So we are here at the Collector's
and one
Emporium.
more thing. The songs that they made, and the lyrics they wrote, they all speak to the heart of the team. And you see the kind of values and ideas that drive Peter in the lyrics of the song. And it's all reflected in who the Guardians are and the kind of missions they take on, and that idea of family and responsibility, but also kicking ass and going from zero to hero and riding through space. It's all there. It's brilliant.
No, it's awesome. And there's even a part where you have to do sort of like a karaoke showdown, which for the sake of not spoiling anything, we're not gonna show that, but it's ear splitting.
Yes, and they were so smart, in the Guardians films to use music to ground and humanize Peter. And it's a constant reminder of, he's the one from Earth.
Like dolls?
And it's this music that really makes him relatable. And now we've embraced that across Marvel with the Guardians and music. So it's part of their rich history now. And again, I think the team just did an awesome job. And that leads right into the rest of the soundtrack. There's the orchestral, there's the licensed songs. It's just a music lover's dream.
Definitely. Now, JF, can you tell us a little bit? We're about to head into the Emporium here, and I mean, based on what I've seen in the movie, that is jam-packed with all sorts of like details and Easter eggs, and I'm dying to see what you've done in this space.
Well, we're in nowhere, and there are plenty of places to visit, and it costs money. And if you remember at the beginning of the game, you were trying to make a little bit of money. You decided to sell either Groot or Rocket eventually, and then you earned some money to pay your fine. But now you're on this space station nowhere, at the edge of the universe, and there's many temptations, there's many places you can go, but there's nothing free, so you can spend money to go. And the Emporium is one of the museum that you can visit, and it's a place where there are the collected artifacts from across the galaxy from different places. And if you're a Marvel fan, you're going to discover a lot of lore in this place. But again, like, this place is not free. You need to pay money to enter. Or you might explore something and go in other places on nowhere, and maybe you can find a way to get in for free. So it will be up to players to figure it out.
I love it. This is the kind of like weird Easter egg detail I'm completely here for. Here's a frog-sized Mjolnir.
There you go. Wielded by a certain Throg. And what's so great is both of the teams, we really don't even think about it as Easter eggs. I mean, they are hidden, and or you have to seek them out, and they are, you know, rewards to Marvel fans, or if you don't know about it, you can learn about it. But instead of calling them Easter eggs, we like to think of them as building blocks. Like if you were in the Marvel Universe, these are the things you would hope to see. And again, the team's just gone above and beyond. All of these are thought out. We talked about them. All the text there, you know, it's all authentic. You can read about it. They really, again, poured so much effort into this in the hopes of delighting players.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, we've seen, you know, obviously there's a massive sprawling Marvel universe to keep track of with, you know, various different timelines and whatnot. And then we've got the MCU, which is starting to branch out on its own. And then there's sort of, you know, in the video game vicinity, it's kind of the Wild West. And it's really cool seeing, you know, different teams take different creative approaches. And,
You know,
Well,
clearly.
that's what's fun about this current generation of Marvel games. You know, about 7 years ago, we formed a new team with a new mission, and part of that is we wanted to give our partners, our collaborators, freedom. We didn't want to tie them in between movies or in between comics or TV shows, and we didn't. And that same thing goes for the players. We didn't want the players to feel that they had to see something else, read something else to understand the game. We want to give them freedom to tell their story. So if they want to blow up planets, blow up the moon, they can do it. So what we do is we just supply ingredients, you know, to the creators. In this case, Eidos. We said, okay, there's Throg. We said, if you're going to make a Guardians game, you know, the ultimate Guardians game, what's the wish list of characters, locations, items, weapons, you name it. And so we just supplied all this stuff, and we said, here's all these comics, here's all these lists, you pick. What do you want to have in your Guardians game? So, you know, if you've read the comics, you'll see a lot of things you're familiar with. If you've only seen the films, it'll look familiar, but it's distinct. It's its own original story, its own Marvel universe. But it really very much is the Marvel universe.
Among other places.
That's right, nowhere. Decapitated head of a Celestial, now home to scientists, traitors, scum and villainy.
What could go wrong?
Nothing.
JF, walk us through a little bit. We've kind of been abandoned by, well, everybody. I guess Drax took off.
Yes.
Mora's not around.
Yeah, actually, at that point, like Rocket and Groot are gone for some reasons, and you get to nowhere, and you're with Gamora and Drax, and at some point you stumble on someone, and boom, Gamora disappears mysteriously. Okay, where's she? We don't know. We don't hear from her. And then Drax is in his head. He has a lot of thoughts about his family, his past, and everything. And nowhere, it's a place he comes at times to reflect on certain things. But you don't know that. And at this point in the story, he wants to take some time off to reflect on stuff. And then he goes on his side. And you, as Peter, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to see Cosmo alone, I guess, and because we still have to bring the message and see if he has heard anything about the mystery going in the galaxy. And as Peter, you're in this hub, and now you have the freedom to go straight to Cosmo, or like we just did a bit with the Emporium, to go around, visit, see what Nowhere has to offer. There might be also opportunities to make a little bit of money with some kind of games and not. And basically at that point, players are totally free to fully explore Nowhere, or just get the business done and go see Cosmo.
Nice. Well, let's head up to Cosmo's tower and see where that takes us. And yeah, I'm sure everything will go smoothly. This is, the Guardians. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Nothing ever goes sideways.
It always goes
Cosmo
according to the
sees
plan.
us. He loves us.
I love these aliens. Like, there's just I feel like there's kind of, a few sort of main races in in Marvel space, but there's a lot of freedom to just get very, colorful with it.
Yes, we were trying to make it feel like a place where aliens from across the galaxy are converging for different businesses or to have fun or whatever it's going on with them. And it needed to feel as such. Like it's not just like you can see a few people from Earth or Earth-like, but for the most part, they're aliens from different places, from Kreese to Alien that we created at Eidos-Montréal as well. So, and here we have Star-Lord that wants to go to see Cosmo, but this guy says like the bridge behind me is closed. You cannot go through that path, so you need to go down that dark alley. And it's a little bit strange. Actually, it's quite odd, and we'll see what's going to happen there. And what is cool with what you're showing is that you passed through it already, but you could have gone on the side of the rail, and Peter you can interact with the rail and is going to lean and just watch at nowhere and put his Star-Lord music on and things like that. Again, it's details that you don't have to experience to enjoy the game, but if you're looking everywhere for all the details, you can experience those things. If you're looking for it, it's close by where there's a little bit of light here to your left. And that's the kind of a detail that we go for. So it can be fun to spend time in nowhere, and that's the kind of the experience we were going for. Like you're on nowhere, you have an objective, but there might be temptations to just enjoy life or just take it easy, take your time and everything. And that's what is going to be cool is players who are all about like exploring everything. They will be rewarded, and if you're about the mission, you will still be rewarded by a lot of twists and turns.
Well, let's save some of those twists and turns for later. We have some more stuff to check out, but let's let Nowhere, be a surprise for now. All right, so we're actually jumping back a little bit now. This is a previous chapter. JF's still with us, and joining us once again is Mary DeMarle, who is the senior narrative director. Mary, what's going on here?
Well, we've jumped a little bit into the story. The Guardians have been together for a little while, and their schemes to basically sell themselves as heroes for hire have not had a lot of success. So they're very short of cash. They desperately need it. So they've kind of embarked on this new scheme where they want to sell a monster to an infamous monster collector, Lady Hellbender. But they didn't have a monster. So they basically decided, well, let's sell Rocket or Groot and see what we can get. And that's a player's choice. So the choice for you is you decide who's going to make the better monster. And in making that choice, it will impact this mission because first of all, you'll be selling somebody different, and we'll see what happens in terms of how successful you can be. And in this particular instance, I think we're going to sell Groot. And this leads to a different gameplay mechanic as well, because we're going to start some stealth missions. Because the whole idea is we're going to sell our teammate, but then we're going to sneak back in and steal our teammate back.
Okay,
and
so
that way we get the money.
This is interesting because I've played this before, but I chose to sell Rocket. And
yes.
That's, I guess, there's no stealth in that case. Is that right?
There's no stealth in that case because you're dealing with the characters themselves, and each of the Guardians are very true to who they are, but they can be very unpredictable to you. So if you know a bit about Rocket, when you try to sell him, Rocket can be very volatile if things don't go his way. And unfortunately, the way he reacts leads to, guess what? We're not going to be able to steal you back. We're just going to steal the money and go.
An entirely different circumstance.
Yes.
Now, I love this because the entire time you've been here, Drax has basically been hyping up Lady Hellbender. And he's just, he thinks she's the coolest. And then he meets her and he's like, you're not 800 feet tall or whatever.
Yes. He basically has heard her legend. He's heard all her stories. He's been regaling the Guardians with these stories all the way and building her into this massive myth. And in his mind, she's a giant. And she is quite big. In fact, she's bigger than all of them. However, she's not really a giant that he was expecting. And as you can see, she takes an interest in him, Drax the Destroyer.
Oh, I love this. This is just like my fan fiction. Now, I know a lot of Marvel stuff, but Lady Hellbender is a blind spot for me. What is her background in the comics? Is she old, new?
Well,
what's her deal?
For us, this was where the collaboration with Marvel really came together, because we knew we wanted a character who would be a strong female character who they would sell the monsters to. And we had created our own version, but we weren't really sure, and we went to Marvel. And as soon as they heard it, they said, hey, Lady Hellbender is somewhat new. She's, I think, introduced in The Incredible Hulk. And they basically said, why don't you take this character and see what you can do with her? So in our story, we went in and we read those comics. We got to know Lady Hellbender, and we reinvented her character a little bit. She's the queen on this planet. She loves monsters. She freed the planet from the controlling priests who once ruled it and demanded worship and mistreated all the monsters. And she's become the ruler here.
What do you mean, no?
I love that. I mean, that's adaptation. That's how you get creative and interesting with it. And it's sort of fun to see the different spin put on everything.
Yes. She actually has two monsters that are her sidekicks all along. She calls them Gnasher and Gasher. And if you are familiar with the comics, Gnasher and Gasher are two of her henchmen. They aren't monsters, they're henchmen, but we knew that they were important characters for her, and we turned them into these big monsters that she actually rides as steeds.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is a world where there's a talking raccoon. Like,
yes.
get weird, have fun. Like, you've got a pretty high ceiling for what's possible.
So this is also what we would call something of a battle of wits, where you are trying to get something from this other character who is resisting, and you're using the dialogue choices to do it. This particular conversation can go in many, many different directions. If you're selling Rocket, it will go one way. Here, selling Groot, you can get different amounts of money based on your skill at negotiation. But here you've succeeded, and he's being taken away to the monster pens where her collection is. And ultimately, they're going to now sneak in at night and steal him back. And there's Gnasher and Gasher.
Oh, they're cute. I like them. So yeah, this is wild. I was like, did I screw up? Like, what did I'm like, this doesn't sound familiar. That's cute. I like that.
No, of course I will. I'll call you.
Yeah, this is an entire section of game that you won't see if you pick a particular option. I love that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So this is now hours later. It's at night. There was true Hellbender style. Everybody was partying and celebrating, and the fortress has gone to sleep for the night, and the Guardians are now going to try and sneak past everybody in order to get to Groot.
Oh, man. Well, man, hopefully they didn't freeze Groot in any sort of space metal. Hopefully we don't run into any wind chimes on our way in here.
So be it. Hey, we are not here to start a war with the woman who's got her own private army.
Yet, like, post house party space aliens is extremely.
No one the wiser.
It's a thing.
Don't you understand?
And again, the Guardians are relatively new as a team. They've been together for about a year. They know each other, but they really haven't gelled as a team yet. So in the course of the game, you're learning about the unpredictability of them as you get to know them.
This is a different kind of stealth than I'm used to.
JF, you want to talk on it?
Well, here the goal is, like Peter said, like when he said, okay, let's go get Groot, like no screaming, no stepping on anything, and that's exactly what you need to do. You need to avoid like to hit the bottles or to hit the guards that are half asleep or inebriated, and try to find Groot, because Rocket, he has his device and he knows roughly where he is. So the goal is to try to locate him.
And even though they're stealthing, you see they are still talking. It's very hard for them to be quiet, or actually to just stop talking.
It's not exactly the most tactical approach, but why not tease Drax in the moment?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's stealth Guardians of the Galaxy style.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this, and I love it. I will trust his doodad.
I trust Rocket's doodad. Remember that time on Unsara?
And it's interesting as you listen to the banter, because you do pick up about former missions and things that they've done, and you get a sense of how this team has approached missions in the past and not been very successful.
Yeah, there's something really fun about that feels also authentically comic booky for a team to already have been, in place and not have this not be a complete origin story.
Yes.
They've got some baggage.
See, now it's the same throne room as we visited when we tried to negotiate with Lady Hellbender, and now we saw she took Groot through one of those elevators, and now the Guardians are trying. Okay, if we want to find Groot, we need to find a way to activate that elevator, and they're going like, okay, how do we do that? And the goal here is to try to find an access to her throne seat, because it looks like she activated stuff from there. So if you can reach up through a small puzzle, then you're going to hopefully be able to use the elevator that will, again, hopefully lead you to Groot.
And in this puzzle, you've been using Star-Lord's visor, which is a very helpful tool. It not only will help you in the course of this as you're solving the puzzle, but as you're viewing the environments and you're reading about stuff, it gives you some of the lore, some of the history, gives you clues in this case as to what you can use. And again, we were talking earlier about the amount of writing that has to be done. Having to write all the texts for these visors. I think the quarantine zone itself just had so many things that we made up lore for.
Oh, you're like,
And also,
go ahead.
and also in what you're saying, Mary, it doesn't take account what you said, the fact that you might be playing in a certain order, and you have to have the lines that also adapt to in which order you do things, because it needs to be acknowledged, it needs to be recognized. And as you go through the environment, sometimes you might look at objects and the backdrop and everything, and if you look at these things, it will trigger conversations that otherwise you would never have.
Exactly.
Not die in that hole, rodent. You'll be unable to retrieve your corpse. Switch this. Done.
So in this, basically, Rocket is giving you through your own visor an access to all the electronic devices and how they're connected. And your goal is try to get the power to activate the elevator. The thing is, those connectors lead to different places or different systems. So you might make a mistake and it can have some sort of outcome that is not necessarily what you were expecting.
Like this?
Like this.
Okay.
Killing permitted now, Peter Quill. Yes, now.
Classic, yeah. No, I was like, there's no way this is gonna go smoothly.
But it's possible to achieve this without disrupting any of the Hellraisers, and you can continue smoothly, or here you just have a small recess.
Now, periodically in the game, you'll have situations where one or more team members have been taken out of action, which completely changes the whole dynamic because, like, that one, rocket grenade attack you've been spamming suddenly isn't available.
Okay.
Maybe Hellbender won't miss them.
And it forces you to adapt your battling style, and there will be also moments in the game where, like for instance, here you didn't have Groot, so you have to deal without Groot. So if you're used to immobilize enemies, now maybe you miss it. Like, oh, I wish I had Groot. And there might be other moments in the game where some Guardians may or may not be with the rest of the team as well.
Now, let's see. Am I totally screwing this up? There we go. That's something.
Here you go.
Like that, I can get up to the throne now. Better hope that panel actually works.
It's definitely one of the stealthiest missions I've ever been on. Just throwing rocks, giant stone steps.
It's not classic stealth.
Yeah. That's probably how I would perform stealth in real life.
There we go. Is that the...
That is the
Oh.
wrong elevator.
What? Right. Root went down on the other side.
Well, it's the only one we got, sweetheart.
Call me sweetheart again.
That's the other thing about the Guardians. They constantly improvise.
We're almost there.
Definitely did
So
not
they
open
found the
right
wrong
door.
elevator, but we're going to get down there anyway.
What could go wrong?
Hey, that one kink, but at least no one raised the alarm.
That's what you call a kink.
It'll be smooth sailing.
This is all completely new to me. I'm
Piece of Scott.
Right on cue.
It's not that. Something's wrong.
Heads up, more guards. I will give a wide berth, Peter Quill.
Oh, come on, you hunk of junk.
it's a lot of bottles.
You party hard.
Clearly, we're enjoying some delicious maple syrup.
Straight from Canada.
You said we're almost there.
Now, is it like instant fail if I wake one of them up, or do I just fight everybody?
It's going to be an instant fail. Like the goal
Okay.
is really to, yeah.
Well, I won't knock over the bottles then, unless I do by accident, in which case, I'm sorry. Yee.
Ooh, close one.
And you didn't explore, but in this room there was also, I think, a costume you could have found. Oh yeah.
I want a costume. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I guess we have to go back. Yeah, so that's a whole stretch I didn't see, and that's why I don't have more costumes. All right, well, I think we're about out of time here, but luckily, here's Groot. He's doing okay. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a treat hearing how much dialogue has gone into this. You're going to clearly be doing a lot of writing.
It's been fun. It's been fun watching you play.
All right, when one Guardian leaves, another steps in to take their place. And joining us now is Steve Szczepkowski, who is the senior audio director for Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. And you did a lot of audio directing. There's quite a lot of sounds, but also a lot of music. You've got a crazy licensed soundtrack here, as well as an original one. Let's check this out. Let's get into it. This is the very introduction of the game, very beginning. We get to meet both Star-Lord, the character, but also Star-Lord, the band. What's going on there?
Well, we were asked to create a band that represented the reason why Peter Quill chose the name Star-Lord, because he grew up loving this band in the 80s. Like a lot of us did when we were at that age, 14, you'd put the band that you represented on your jacket. So that's how he kind of came about in our universe, about taking his name. So JF, creative director, asked me to look into seeing if we could go a bit deeper and create an album. And we looked into the logistics, and I found a good writing partner. And then we just started over the course of the development cycle banging out songs and sending them over to JF. We also sat down at one point, JF and I, and kind of created a list of sort of the themes and topics I would cover lyrically. And then from that point, if I found I was stuck, I would go back to that list and be like, okay, what didn't I write about yet? And I would find something new, So, yeah, it was really exciting. It was really fun. I mean, I look at it now and it kind of amazes me that it all came to life.
This is crazy because like you think when you're making
That's
video
actually
games,
me.
you're also
That's actually
that
me
you?
in that photo. Yeah, the one right on the end there. On
So
the
was
left.
this like your band in high school or just?
It was a band at some point in the 80s, and some guys in the actual band were photoshopped out for some of the dev team guys.
Okay. But yeah, no, it's crazy.
But
Like you think you're working on a game, but you also have to make an album at the same time. That's kind of an undertaking.
But I don't mind. I like challenges.
Yeah. Now this blew my mind. You got an actual issue of Rolling Stone to really kind of help establish.
Well, again, yeah, I like making dreams come true. And JF came to me and he's like, "Hey, what do you think to add credibility if we could get Rolling Stone in there?" So I'm like, "All right, let me use my let's see what kind of pull I can get." And I asked around. Thankfully, I had a really good partner in all this, Randy Eckhart from Eckhart Consulting, who helped us with all the music licensing, and he had a contact at Rolling Stone. So A plus B, and we got to C, and we got into talks with them, and we told them what we wanted. And they were so accommodating, they provided us one of their writers, who I then sent the finished album to. He listened to it all, he did the review, he interviewed me. So it's as credible as you can get. It's a real Rolling Stone writer who wrote. We synced with Rolling Stone. We got all their fonts for the art direction. You couldn't get more credible unless you found it on the rack.
Yeah, so that's bonkers because I'm used to seeing in games, there's like, oh, it's like Spinning Rock Magazine or like Time, like Clock Week or whatever, and it's like.
Well, we have those posters on the wall. If you look around the room, there's some interesting sort of Eidos-Montréal versions of pop culture.
It's a mix of both. I'm very into it. Now this is Peter's mom here, who's reminiscing about the good old days.
Yeah, she's a great actress. We were really blessed with a really strong cast. So, it's one of those, the writers did a great job, and then we just have to sit back and let them all shine.
Now there's a bit here that I really. JF, maybe you can speak to this, but talking about having to email people and get the rights to use certain things and do certain stuff. She just stepped on something.
Oh, yeah.
It's chewy.
We'll see it in a second. Yeah, it's chewy. Actually, like Steve said, we really wanted to be authentic. And as you start the game, and you're with young Peter, is a kid of the '80s, so we were trying to really ground the players in that era and everything. And the Chewbacca figurine was something that actually it's something in my own life when I was 5 years old. It's the first figurine I ever discovered walking outside of the house, and I didn't see Star Wars back then. And when I saw this, it was the most beautiful thing I ever saw as a toy, and I was so blown away. And that story, I still remember it to this day, years after. And when we started to work on this, I had this idea that the kid, like, how do we ground it in that period of time with something iconic that will be known across the world? And Chewbacca for me was representative of that, and but it was not an easy road. Like at first, like it was no, we cannot do that and everything. And actually, I worked with people at Marvel for over a year to to try to have that happen, and it finally happened. Like everybody eventually got on board, and it was super exciting. So the day that I received the confirmation we could use it, I was in the studio and I went, "Yeah, we got it!" And people like, "What? Oh, he's talking about the Chewbacca figurine."
It's so cool. I love it. Like, I mean, it's weird because you have the the Eidos-Montréal. Here's the hit '80s film Fur Things. Looks a little familiar, but clearly not from our universe. And then you jump over here, and there's Tron. It's like it grounds it in a very familiar universe, even if it's not quite the one we're in exactly.
Can't believe I caught this. That Maiden show was awesome.
Yeah, I mean you've got actual Iron Maiden over here, which is amazing. Steve, can you talk a little bit about the licensed music and what it was like, kind of getting the rights to use that? We can't actually play any of it because the lawyers and all that, but
I'm very familiar with the lawyers, believe me. But yeah, we like I said, I was very lucky in that I was introduced to Randy Eckhart, and that's me playing the guitar very badly at home, trying hard to just pretend I'm going through the licks there.
Up my calluses.
But I thought that was really cool that you could pick up the guitar and interact with it, and I play like sort of like as if he's learning the licks to the songs on the cassette. So for the license, go ahead. So yeah, for the licensed music, like I said, I was very lucky that I needed a partner who knew how to tread those waters very well. So I'm working with Randy Eckhart. He's from all the Guitar Hero fame. He worked on putting all that license together. So that was an invaluable partner. We worked together for probably 2 years. And you know, from starting out with pitching you know, rough song ideas and, you know, occasionally sitting down with JF and looking at the songs we had, and, you know, I'd sit there saying I'm thinking of getting this one or that one, and just making sure there was no red flags and we were all aligned. And sometimes he would have ideas, and then I'd go to Randy and he would do all the street work. You know, he would go and make all the phone calls and then come back and be like, yay or nay, they're interested or they're not. And we would adapt our list accordingly and just keep moving on until we shaved it down to what we have now in the game, which is 31 tracks.
But what was fun, it was to go, like you said, Steve, going through all the songs, listening, like going back on YouTube and like putting ourselves back in those days and finding the right songs, like with the right vibe, the right lyrics for the scenes we had and everything. So it was quite, that was the legal part, but from a creative standpoint, that was really fun to dig back in some of those great, awesome songs.
Yeah, it made me realize just how much good stuff there was in the 80s that kind of, you know, there was a lot of good content. I mean, there was a lot of fluff too, but I mean, I think there was a lot of good stuff that got overlooked that when we went back now, we were like, wow, this really aged well. It still fits.
Yeah, and if you're not a metalhead, there's plenty of stuff on the soundtrack that is, you know, it's just...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We made sure that we didn't pigeonhole it as much as Peter's like a metal fan. We wanted to give a pretty rounded sort of view of, I would say, more of the early 80s period, like the front. I mean, I think JF would agree. I think the main focus is the first 5 years of the decade, and we have some from the latter half. But it's a lot of rock, it's a lot of pop and new wave, like the stuff that was really big at the time.
The betrayer is ready to begin our mission.
It's a good time. Can you speak a little bit about sort of the role that music plays in Guardians of the Galaxy? Because obviously we've seen it on the big screen, but it has I feel like a much more kind of integral role in the game itself.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely infused into their DNA. I mean, it's part of Peter Quill's. It's almost part of his personality, right? Like the music is part of the way he kind of either communicates or interacts, or maybe that's his go-to in awkward situations. I mean, you know, we all use music for different reasons, either to unwind or maybe sometimes to pump us up. So again, that plays into the huddle mechanic that we worked on, where, you know, the team had this great idea to sort of have this huddle bit. And again, like I was just always I knew Guardians was a big sort of like music was important. So I was always trying to look for ways to kind of jump and piggyback. Like I'm like that kid running around like, what are you doing? Can I play? Can I play? And trying to find where I can kind of find ways to get audio more present in the game. And when I showed JF, like just by dumb luck of just playing around and putting licensed music under combat, and he was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And then we just kept exploring it. And once we put sort of like the game direction side and added the sort of cherry on top of the music at the end. I mean, the huddle part is great because it really reinforces you being the leader of the team. And you know, it's not something like, I know sometimes, you know, maybe some people feel it kind of slows down the combat, but I disagree. I think it's an important moment in the story and in the game where it puts you back and it reminds you that you're the leader of this team. And it's an important thing to not forget, you know. So I thought it was a really good mechanic to have in the game. And I was just happy to be able to kind of get the music in there and you know, to kind of help round it out a bit, you know.
Okay, so obviously, you know, the Guardians are going to spend a lot of time hanging out on the Milano, which is, it's, you know, it's their home. It's a little hangout here. JF, can you tell us a little bit about sort of what there is to explore in here, what we're going to see?
Well, the Milano is the home of the Guardians. So throughout the adventure, as they fly from one destination to another, they will spend time in the Milano. And what is cool, the way we build it, so it's a recurring place that you're going to visit. And depending okay, you finished a mission, boom, the Milano flies away. You're back in the Milano with your Guardians. You can decide to explore, or if you just want to go for the next adventure and the next part of what they're trying to achieve, you can just go to the pilot seat and just fly for the next destination. But if you want to spend some time with your Guardians, there will be plenty of opportunities. And each visit that you go through the Milano, there will be different things. Like, of course, you can go and visit the room of all the Guardians. Like, there's a lot of show don't tell that tells you more about those characters. And as you go through different missions, you're going to be able to if you explore a bit in the environments, to find some what we call Guardians collectibles. And those collectibles are associated to all of the Guardians. Like, you have, I think, something like 15 to find in the game. And there's 3 per Guardians. And basically what it does, it evokes back a memory about their lives. And as you collect those things, they will be in the Milano, and you can interact with them and unlock those personal conversation with the different Guardians and learn more about them. And what's cool is that if it's not something that you're into, you don't want to spend time on it, you don't have to do it. But if you're into discovering those characters and their lives, there's a lot to do there. And as you go through the adventure, I don't want to spoil too much, but the Guardians will meet different characters, and some might get in the Milano. You will have moments to interact with them in the Milano, and there might be some part of some missions that happen in the Milano as well, and again, you have other things like you showed already, like you can go to the jukebox, you can scroll to all the lists of licensed tracks and the Star-Lord tracks. And if you want to spend a lot of time there and just like listening to music, enjoying the time off, it can be really nice. And another thing also is that as you stay there and maybe you just listen to music and you do nothing else and you wait, the Guardians can start like different conversations about different stuff that you never heard before, and you're like,
it feels like really hanging out with them. Like, you can put on some music and kind of chill out. I think the most Guardians thing here is someone leaving the fridge open. Because, it's a little bit of a frat house. But there's so many awesome details in here. I love that people keep using Peter's toothbrush.
It's like cribs in space.
Pretty much, yeah. Drax's kettlebell is great. His yoga mat, that's just, I don't know, you always see ripped Marvel characters. You never see their exercise gear. That's a nice touch. And then, Gamora's room is just like oddly, kind of a teenage girl's bedroom, but she's reading The Art of War. This is great.
It's really cool, and without spoiling too much, at some point in the story, there's someone who gets in the Milano and decides to lock himself up in Peter's bedroom. And Peter goes like, did he just take my personal space? And Drax goes, something like it's a bold display of dominance, and there are those moments like that, and it's really fun, and it goes back to what you just said. Like it's their home. It needs to feel lived in, and they have like natural conversations, like when you're at home with friends or family and stuff like that. So we really wanted to craft a unique experience for all of the visits of the Milano you'll have throughout the adventure.
And like JF was saying,
it's a good touch. I've had it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh.
No, go ahead. You're right.
No, I was just going to say, like JF was saying, and I can't sell the point enough. If you're into hanging out and interacting with them, like the content, I mean, right up until the end, I think I was occasionally, because obviously when we're playing the game, we're not playing it for necessarily the experience. We're playing it to test the game and make sure like this is fixed and that. But I was finding like these crazy conversations that I never even had heard before. And this is like after, playing the game for like 3 years, and you're sort of like, did you, I'd sync with one of the audio guys and I'm like, I was just doing this thing and Groot was watering something and they got into this whole argument about it. And he's like, what? He's like, that's crazy. And I said, I know, I never heard that before. So it really gets really deep. Like there's so much value there into the time that you spend with your Guardians, you know?
Yeah, I've had moments where I've been, you know, like I'll be hanging out in Milano and I'll put the controller down without pausing it and I'll hear people talking and I'll like run back. I'm like, is it a cutscene? Is something happened? And it's just like Drax and Groot arguing and I'm like, okay, never mind. It's just
it's life.
Stupid friends.
Life aboard the Milano.
Yeah. And I love this is Groot's little hangout, his little
he loves plants.
Nice. Is that one from Seknarf 9? I bet it loves water.
No, it's wonderful. There's a phenomenal amount of detail in here. Now let's see. Is there anything? Let's check out the upgrade bench, which
the workbench.
Here we go. Yeah.
There you go.
So I love that only Rocket's the one who's doing this. He's gonna do all your tinkering.
Correct. But the game is always reacting to you. So depending on the missions and how you played it, you know, Rocket may or may not be in the mood to upgrade your stuff. I'm sure JF could go into more detail on that, but it's one of the great things about how the game is always shifting with how you're playing it.
Yes, and with Rocket is that sometimes there might be events that happen where he's not there, and therefore you cannot craft. Or when he's pissed, he will still craft for you, but like Steve just said, the way he approaches it, like he will have a different mood to fit with his general mood, and it creates for some funny moment. And the crafting bench, actually, it's we talked about the skills of the Guardians and Peter abilities, but Peter's also can unlock different perks throughout the game. So as you go through the journey and you explore a bit, you can find component parts all over the place. And when you have enough and you find a workbench in an environment, or when you're back on the Milano because they have one, you can go there and craft like different perks for the characters. It can go to quicker reload, like charge attacks, or be able to slide on your back as you evade an enemy after he knock you on your back, stuff like that. You can also have a component localizer. So when you have that perk, it can tell you in the rough location where there are those components that you can find to upgrade the different perks, like you're currently doing right now. So the consumable magnet like allows you to attract like the HP points that enemies drop on the ground. Like you don't have to run towards them to grab them. They will come back to you if you have unlocked that perk. So there are little things like that will add to your skill set for Peter Quill that are optional. You don't have to do these things, but they will really bring something to the table depending on your playing style.
Very nice. Yeah, there's good upgrades in there. It's you can kind of gauge how much there is to do by how many things there are to unlock, and there's clearly plenty to keep you busy.
Yeah, a sense of progression.
All right, I'm being told we have to wrap things up. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, so before we go, there's a couple things we want to show off. We mentioned this earlier, but Mondo is pressing the soundtrack on vinyl. Keep an eye out for details on that as it goes up. I'm sure you can find them on the Eidos-Montréal Mondo various social media feeds. But that is all the Star-Lord songs and the orchestral score. But that is not all. JF, you have something you want to show off. Some sharp-eyed fans noticed in the launch trailer that Teenage Peter Quill is wearing a very specific set of sneakers.
Yes, we saw when we did the launch trailer, fans like picking up on the fact that young Star-Lord had the Forum 84 high-top Adidas sneakers, and that it's cool. We were happy to see that, and it was great to see like fans like being excited about those shoes. And it started when we designed young Star-Lord. Like we wanted it to feel and look like he's a kid from the 80s. Yes, he has long hair. He has like his jean coat with cut-off sleeves and the patch of his favorite band in the back. And he also has those great Adidas sneakers. And so we had that that vision for the game, and we brought it to Marvel. Marvel got excited with that. They discussed also with Disney, and they approached Adidas, and Adidas like really jumped into it like in a very exciting way, because like what they did is that not only they allowed us to use their sneakers, but we were allowed to brand them as Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. As you can see on his shoes on the side, he took a Sharpie and he created or drew the logo of his favorite band, Star-Lord, and it's really cool. And it's how it started. Adidas loved it. It's in the game, so it feels really authentic, and it doesn't stop there, because Adidas like went a little bit further. And let me do this here. They kind of really recreated the Forum 84 high top sneakers, and as you can see, it doesn't stop there. It's really young Star-Lord sneakers that you see here. And
I love that. Official Star-Lord Adidas.
Correct. And soon enough, fans will be able to put their hands on those beautiful sneakers.
The Star-Lord Forum 84 high-top shoes from the game are becoming a reality in the upcoming months, and fans in select regions will have a chance to purchase these limited edition sneakers. Just head over to adidas.com and check out the Adidas Creators Club for more details and sign-up information, which will give you the where, when, and how to get a pair for yourself. Well, that seems like a good stopping point. We are all out of things to show you without spoiling everything. Huge thank you to Square Enix, Marvel Games, and Eidos-Montréal. And most of all, JF, thank you so much for flying shotgun with me and showing me around this awesome universe you've created.
Thank you. It's really appreciated. And stay tuned with everything that is Eidos, Marvel, and Disney. We have more surprises down the road. So go to the social medias for the latest, and hope you enjoy the game. It's coming out now.
Well, if you want to find out what happens next, you don't have to wait too long, because Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is out everywhere tomorrow on PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Series S, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC. And for more on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and the ever-growing Marvel video game universe, stay tuned to IGN.com.